All right. Hey, guys. Thank you for sticking around. My name is Vays. Thank you so much, KINZA, for inviting me as a speaker. Really enjoying the event. You guys have done an incredible job. And my clock's about to start, and I got to explain this new revolutionary technology and why it fits into marketing as well as all the other aspects of industry. My name is Vays. I'll be the only Vays in your Google search. Find me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Be super careful with imposters and scammers. Anyone that has followed me on Instagram knows what happens the next day. Fake me's will message you, offering you money investment services because my YouTube channel does focus around trading, investing. I'm involved in a lot of different aspects. I organize a couple of events. One is called Unconfiscatable, which is an event in Las Vegas that educates about Bitcoin. The other one is Financial Summit, which is more for traders, investors, and hedge funds. All right, I'm going to jump right into it. So quickly, well, my background on Wall Street, I was sort of a quant, not really a quant. To be a quant, you need a PhD. You got to write the risk models. I was helping the quants write the risk models. I did 7 years of university. I have 3 degrees, 7 years of university. I was not going to stick around to do my PhD. Wanted to move on with my life. But my degrees are in mathematics, geology, and financial engineering. So Bitcoin really is changing the world, because for the first time in human history, we have an unconfiscatable, censorship-resistant means of savings and payments. And I'm going to talk about this presentation, why it's important, and then the connection to why it's so important in marketing and in every single business will become pretty clear right away. And it becomes absolutely critical to know the latest technology in order to survive in any single industry, any single business. So what does Bitcoin do? Well, it's a simple global payment. It creates a new pool of potential wealthy investors because right now, the number of wealthy people because of crypto is growing. So the number of millionaires in the world will get disproportioned to the number of millionaires that became millionaires because of Bitcoin and crypto. It's the same thing that the internet did as well. And you do need to stay on top of the latest technology. So there's really 2 things to understanding Bitcoin. One is why you need to have Bitcoin, use Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin. So there's a why question, and then there is the technological how question. So it's similar to understanding the internet, right? Someone has to explain to you why you need to start using email instead of writing letters to your customers, your customers, your clients, and also how do you use email. But learning how to use email is a little bit easier than learning how to use Bitcoin. So this is more of a presentation as to why you need to start paying attention and using Bitcoin. I'm not really going to talk about the how. For those that are curious at the how, I really recommend my friend BTC Sessions YouTube channel. He has an amazing YouTube channel about how to use Bitcoin. Oh, let me go back. And these are just some books I recommend. So you can take a picture of this slide, or also this presentation I'm sure will be available once the video comes out. Okay, so several properties of Bitcoin that are completely unique and why it's becoming more and more adopted, why more and more people are finding it more and more useful. So for me personally, the most important property of Bitcoin is unconfiscatability. It's also the reason why I own unconfiscatable.com. I didn't know what I was going to do with that domain, but eventually we created an event called Unconfiscatable to educate people. just in the last decade, let's go through a few examples. Anyone here remembers the 2013 Cyprus bank confiscation of people's money? There you go, a few hands went up. So imagine you have a business, you've worked hard, you've legally earned several $100,000, euros, they're worth about the same right now. And that's right there, that's that headline right there. And suddenly the government comes in and says, any money you have in the bank above $100,000, we're gonna take half of that. So if you have $200,000 in the bank, legally earned, they took $50,000. If you had $500,000 in the bank, they took $200,000 just because they could, okay? So that is when I realized how important Bitcoin was. I've heard about it before that, but it was that incident that made me really think about, well, I have a Wall Street job. I'm making over $100,000 a year. That money is sitting in the bank. I'm saving it to buy a house. What do you mean the government can just come and take it? Okay? So Bitcoin removes that because you are now in possession of your own money. A year later, well, actually 2 years later, we had the Greek banking crisis and very, very similar incident where the government didn't allow people to use their money for months. It was just stuck in the banks. I have a slide from 2014. This came out in a publication in the US where the law enforcement had confiscated more money from people than burglars and thieves did. So you have a higher probability of having your wealth taken by a cop in the US than by someone robbing your house, okay? And then we had more recent examples. 2021 with the COVID protests in Canada, Canada decided to cut off bank accounts to people that donated $20 to a political campaign that they didn't appreciate. And the more recent one in 2022, where the West decided to just confiscate private assets of wealthy Russian passport holders. They refer to them as oligarchs. In the US, they're referred to as, you know, entrepreneurs or like just wealthy people in general. But when they're Russian, they're just referred to as oligarchs. Okay, so we have all these examples of confiscation by governments, and people don't seem to rise up and put more assets more wealth in an asset that cannot be confiscated. So the next aspect of Bitcoin is censorship resistance. So this is where you can send something of value to anyone, anywhere in the world, and all they need is an internet connection. This actually started in 2010. This is before Bitcoin had any value whatsoever. There was already talk about WikiLeaks. How many of you remember WikiLeaks? This was a website that was publishing US war atrocities online, and the US government didn't like it. So the website was functioning thanks to donations, Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, and the US banking sector decided to cut them off. So they started talking about using Bitcoin for donations in order to keep their servers running. And they did a very, very good job of that. 2011 came Silk Road, where people were buying substances that are illegal in some countries, very illegal in other countries. But also, it was the method of payment that could not be stopped. The website was eventually taken down, but the method of payment being used was not stopped. Once again, the 2015 banking crisis, because they decided no matter how much money you had in the bank, you were only allowed to withdraw 60 euros a day. That's all you were allowed. And then after a few weeks, they decided to give you 420 euros, but that was your maximum weekly allowance. And once that happened, this was the scene. This is what happened in Greece. The moment they allowed people to withdraw 420 for the entire week, okay? I have a different presentation in more detail about this, and these pictures are no different than all the bank panics we had like 1929, 1907, Weimar Germany in the 1920s with hyperinflation, and many, many others. More recently, again, this year, Russia was removed from SWIFT, the international banking system. And it shows that the United States will use the financial system to control any single country. And that's a big problem, because now other countries are looking at this, countries like India, countries like China, and they're going to say, well, wait a minute, if we do something that the US government doesn't like, we're going to get cut off from the world financial system as well. And this is why all kinds of alternative means of transferring money are being built. While at the same time, Bitcoin has been with us now for 13 years. Only the last 10 of them have been relevant. The first 3 years have not. And just like the internet, it takes time, and people get more and more used to it, which is why I think that in the future, all these countries will not have their own system. If every country has their own financial system, it's hard for the world to function. But if there is a single intermediary, like our internet itself, where the entire world can simply use a single medium, it's very difficult for the United States to kick Russia off the internet. They would if they could, but they can't, because the internet is fairly decentralized. And that's the advantage that Bitcoin has as this world, as this potential world currency. But what will make it a currency, and one of the things that will make it a currency, is the fact that Bitcoin is hard money, just like gold. There is a finite amount of Bitcoin. And thanks to the two other properties I already mentioned, and the fact that Bitcoin is decentralized, there is almost no chance that there will be more than 21 million Bitcoin in circulation. Now, that 21 million Bitcoin can be divided into very, very small units, and then there will be other layers that divide those units further. But money has always evolved. And the latest innovation in money, which is our last 100 years, has been this complete fiat system that decoupled from gold almost 100 years ago. And historically, what we consider money has always evolved. And we are pushing the limits of how long our current fiat financial system is going to survive. Because no system, no payment system has survived more than several hundred years. They always collapse and something new and better comes along. So we've been dealing with a fiat system for the last 100 years, and we will witness the end of that system. So the question is, what comes next, okay? So in my view, we are dealing in the middle of a generational shift. And for the next 100 years or so, it's very likely going to be Bitcoin. And after that, it will be something else. And it's not too late. For those that think that Bitcoin is too expensive, you're thinking of it in terms of an investment. If you don't think of it in terms of an investment, if you think of it as, well, what if I just use it? Is it better? Is it a better means of saving? Is it a better means of paying people? Is it a better means of getting a salary in Bitcoin? And from that point of view, in the next few years, people will realize how much better it is. And I'm pretty sure the world is going to slowly migrate towards it, okay? And you're not going to have infinite number of digital scarcities. This is why I personally don't pay attention to Ethereum. I don't pay attention to any other cryptocurrencies. Because if you have infinite number of digital scarcities, you don't really have digital scarcity, okay? You either have digital scarcity or you don't. The way I think of Ethereum is I think of Ethereum as the next competitor to Amazon's AWS. I just don't think of it as a decentralized protocol like the internet. This is where Bitcoin is a little bit different. So in the early days of the internet, you could not invest in the internet itself. You saw the internet coming. You're like, wow, this is the greatest thing. How can I profit from this? You had to pick and choose companies on the internet. Google did well, Amazon did well. If you chose pets.com over Amazon, you didn't do so good, okay? So you had to pick and choose winners. You picked Yahoo early, you did great. You picked Yahoo late, it lost to Google. Okay, Yahoo was one of the biggest companies we had. So you had to pick and choose these centralized companies on top of this decentralized beast called the internet. You had no ability to profit from the internet itself. This is where the crypto world is different. Bitcoin itself is like the internet. It is this one decentralized thing that all these other cryptos absolutely depend on. They can say they're completely different, they're not. If Bitcoin fails, everything fails. If one of these other projects fails, like Luna failed recently, no one cares. Yeah, some people lost millions of dollars. Okay, you migrate your project over to another blockchain. Nobody cares. They're all, at the end of the day, they're all irrelevant. Okay? If something happens to Amazon, there is another Amazon ready to go. Okay? People will just migrate over. But if internet fails, everything fails. Amazon fails, Google fails, everything fails if the internet fails. That's Bitcoin. Now, the easy money in Bitcoin has been made, obviously, but Bitcoin still has room to grow. But with Bitcoin, you don't have to pick winners and losers. When you choose any other crypto project, just remember, you are going with a company with a CEO that is not decentralized, that can alter and pivot any way they like. They can also be controlled by the government. They can tell them to alter things. So just keep that in mind. So what are some of the things that will drive Bitcoin further, make it more and more popular? Well, I have a couple of reasons here. One of them is the continued money printing and general hyperinflation. I would love to zoom in on some of this, but that's okay. Actually, a really nice quality screen, so it's pretty sharp. So this is a list of all currencies since 1900 that have failed and gone into hyperinflation. Not all of them have fully failed, but hyperinflation is defined as your currency losing 50% of its value in 30 days. So I got the list from the book, but the book was written in 2008 with Zimbabwe. Everything since 2008 Zimbabwe, I added this, and I had to look for all these currencies. Everything in blue was in the last, was in the 10 years since then, and this is what we've had just this decade since 2020, okay? We have Turkey on the list, Venezuela's currency has imploded, Argentina has already happened, Zimbabwe happened again, and more recently, the currency issues in Russia and Ukraine, and Lebanon, Sri Lanka, financial system just imploded, and inflation in Venezuela is still out of control. They're now using the US dollar. So this is gonna keep happening. Okay, a lot of us are used to the US dollar. We're here in the UAE, it's pegged to the US dollar. But what happens when the US dollar goes? And eventually it will. Money printing is out of control. 23% of all the money that the United States has ever printed took place during the 2020 COVID incident. And here's a little map. It's probably outdated. This is April 2022 of all the countries around the world and what kind of inflation they are having. Russia has solved some of their currency inflation issues for the moment. We'll see where that goes next. And Argentina is in serious trouble. Another aspect that will drive people into Bitcoin is the war on cash. Most developed countries really hate cash, and they really don't like people that use cash. And they have multiple reasons as to why they want to eliminate cash. They want to control the interest rates. They want to dictate whether you're spending your money or saving your money. They want full compliance. Most countries believe that the reason why they haven't created this perfect utopia that you see in some movies where everyone is happy is because everyone is cheating on their taxes. And if there was no cash, then no one would be able to cheat on their taxes. And of course, the central bank digital currencies, which is the only difference between a central bank digital currency and your current central bank digital currency is the elimination of cash. And they can actually dictate based on your social credit score, like, hey, you know, we think you've been eating too much meat, so the next time you go to shop at a supermarket, your credit card will not allow you to buy meat because the government has decided you've eaten your meat quota for the week. So this is what Bitcoin will avoid. And the sooner the government removes cash, physical cash from the banking system, the sooner people will realize how important Bitcoin is. And like, here are some of the countries. The countries in red are the countries that really want to get rid of cash the fastest. So these are the countries that feel that the cash system is having a huge burden on their economies. And the countries in yellow are in between. The countries in blue really don't care. All right, so Bitcoin becomes this perfect hedge, okay? There will only be 21 million Bitcoin with at least 10% permanently lost. Those are, no one really knows, but those are the average statistics. I really like this one right here. That's the number of addresses that have just one Bitcoin or more in the address. So right now, one Bitcoin is about $20,000. It is fairly affordable for a middle-class person in the West, not affordable for most people in Africa. But once a person acquires a single Bitcoin, they're really acquiring it for, and they're holding on to it for as long as possible. And if someone is able to acquire one Bitcoin, they're able to acquire probably a second one. So as this number goes up, more and more Bitcoin goes into people's wallets, cold storage, that they're not going to be spending much, okay? The Lightning Network is growing. The Lightning Network is, we have almost 10,000 Bitcoin in the Lightning Network, and the Lightning Network is used for spending for things. And once Bitcoin enters the Lightning Network, it's very rare that it leaves the Lightning Network. So as more and more Bitcoin enters the Lightning Network, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, a million Bitcoin, that Bitcoin is used in commerce, and it's not going to get sold on the market. And if Bitcoin is not being sold on the market, there's no selling pressure, so the price of Bitcoin tends to rise. Corporations and governments are starting to buy Bitcoin as a hedge. They don't see anything better they can do with the money. We already had MicroStrategies is the leader. They already have 120,000 Bitcoin. I think they've bought some since then. Tesla bought a bunch. They also sold some. We have a lot of Bitcoin miners. And now governments and countries, starting with El Salvador, are moving to a Bitcoin standard for their money. So this is my final slide, and it's great that I only have 2 minutes left. So now that I've explained Bitcoin, there's really only 2 minutes needed to explain why it's needed for marketing. Because if you don't understand Bitcoin, why on earth would I be able to explain to you why it's so needed for marketing? Well, it's really simple. Just like with the internet, those that did not adopt the latest technology lost their competitive advantage. You know, you could have been the greatest marketer in history, and the internet comes along and you ignored it. What do you think happened to your marketing business? Obviously, you needed to be on board with the latest technology. And Bitcoin is that latest technological technology, okay? Now, Bitcoin gives you the ability to make instant, borderless payments. This also includes micropayments more recently, thanks to Lightning, and anonymous payments. thanks to the liquid sidechain, which is not that popular. Most people don't really know much about it. But if you understand it and you need that anonymous payment, you have the liquid sidechain all through Bitcoin or fast, cheap payment through Lightning. The ability to include the developing world with lots of untapped potential for both customers and talent. Everyone wants to hire the best talent at the lowest price. But if that talent is in a country that doesn't have banking services, how do you pay them? Okay, Bitcoin solves that problem. It also creates new customers from the developing world that may afford your product. It's hard for them to pay for it because they don't have a credit card, but they can do it with Bitcoin. You can target a new class of wealth because the crypto industry is becoming the new high wealth industry. You can target those that have gotten wealthy on early investments in crypto. And Bitcoin is deflationary. So it still has an opportunity to get you wealthier if you start adopting that Bitcoin standard. All right, so that was me. Again, Tom Vays. I should probably go back to my very first slide so you can see my name on there. And you can follow me all over social media, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I mostly talk about finance and trading, but if you look at my older videos from between 2015 and like 2019, it was mostly about educating about Bitcoin, news stories, and things like that. If I have time for questions, that'd be awesome.